Alrighty, and we are here with Rick. Rick, what is up, dude?
Hey, not much. How you doing?
Good. What do you think of the new background? We
I
have
love
moved
it.
the desk.
Classy, artsy. You're a very sophisticated man.
That's the elevation that we're bringing with this new background. we went from the closet, which, you know, sometimes I stylize to leave open, which my parents absolutely hated. They're like, "You're so messy. Close the goddamn closet door." And now we get my art. A new man.
Your exhibit.
Well, so we rearranged the office room, and as part of that, we got this new desk chair. Because I was like, okay, I need a more ergonomic chair,
Right.
which is one of those words that I kind of understand, but don't totally understand. Like, what makes it ergonomic versus not ergonomic?
Yeah, and can you use it in a sentence not having to do with a chair?
Yeah,
No.
exactly. And also, like, where's the line between it's ergonomic and it's not? Right? Can't you just technically be like, everybody is different. It's ergonomic for me and not ergonomic for you.
True.
Yeah, there's a lot of words like that people throw around a lot that feel a lot more powerful than they actually may be. But anyways, so I got this. This is the first like proper desk chair I've ever owned. And partly is because I think usually they're pretty ugly because they're like this big, you know, office chair.
Well, it's funny because I'm hurting because I went to the Red Sox game last night and I sat in the section of the seats that was built in like 1932, where it's so unbelievably uncomfortable and was made when the average man was like 5'7" and 140 pounds. It's just so uncomfortable.
And knowing you know, 5'9", 400.
Exactly.
you can barely get in there.
Yeah, I'm in bulk mode, so it was a tight squeeze.
According to my doctor, I'm in a cut phase. But anyway, no. I like the new chair. I'm into the chair. Not sponsored, but I do feel like a new man in this chair. Do you have a favorite chair?
No, see, I'm cheap, where my office chair, work from home chair is just a folding chair with one of those like gel pads on the bottom to make the bottom more comfortable.
I always have done that, like on a kitchen table. Like, I've never been a real office work from home kind of guy. Like, I really don't like monitors and stuff like that. But, you know, new age 2026. Here we go, baby. But anyway, I digress. Welcome to the show. If this is your first time listening, Chair Talk with Rick and Nick. When we were in Michigan for the Abdul interview, we met that dude who had the Antiques and Vintage podcast. And I bet you there's a lot of chair debate on that show.
For sure.
Shout out to that guy. He was awesome.
Yeah,
I forget
seriously.
his name. What a cool guy. But anyways, we have a lot of news to get to. It was an interesting week of news where it felt like nothing happened at first. Last night when I was thinking about putting the ultimate list together, I was like, not a lot really happened this week. And then as I was putting it together, it was more substantial than I almost like remembered.
Yeah, we're still in peak primary season, I think, for probably 1 or 2 more weeks. The Massachusetts one isn't for a week and a half or 2 weeks. So,
Yeah, they had their debate, Moulton and Markey.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. Moulton, did he win you over?
No. No.
Well, you can turn the show off now. Rick is still not impressed.
He could buy me a house and I wouldn't vote for him.
No, yeah, he keeps getting worse, actually. He got the AOC endorsement yesterday, I think, which is...
Moulton
No, Markey,
Oh,
sorry.
Markey.
Yeah, Markey. The final nail on the
Yeah.
Moulton coffin, baby. But the big news this week was Angie Nixon winning her primary in Florida. She beat Alex Vindman pretty significantly. She won 56-44. She was outraised 16-1 in this election. And I feel like every single time we talk about one of these primaries with one progressive candidate versus establishment, that number keeps getting higher. Abdul was 8-1, then it's 10-1, then it's 12-1. 16-1 is an absolutely ridiculous difference.
Yeah, insane. And yet they keep winning.
Which is crazy. It's really kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, and you got to wonder how many people hear stats like that are undecided in the weeks prior to the election and vote for the person that's the underdog and not taking all the money. You know what I mean? Like,
totally, yeah.
Kind of ironically, all this millions and billions of dollars is hurting some of these candidates.
Yeah, people love a Cinderella story, right?
That's right.
So, no, I mean, it does talk about two kind of more philosophical questions, and we'll go into the primary in more detail in a second, but it does kind of start putting to bed this idea that you have to take the money. Because so many times when you talk to more traditional Democrat consultants or traditional Democrat like DC folk, they kind of have this attitude around PAC money and donations that's similar to the Lance Armstrong steroid justification of just, how am I supposed to win this race when they're all on roids? I needed to roid up too, kind of thing. And I get that in bicycling, but I don't know if I get it in politics. And it's seemingly becoming less and less true. And I feel like the midterms are kind of putting that to bed a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. It's the Bernie effect, I think. And she seems like a great candidate. She does have a very uphill battle, I feel like, because Florida is just increasingly red. But wouldn't it be amazing if she won?
Yeah, and she clearly did a great job and very charismatic, very likable to be able to do that. Honestly, though, and there were some losses too, like Wasserman Schultz won and things like that. And we'll talk more about that. So I'm not trying to oversimplify this as just like establishment Dems, institutional Dems are getting smoked across the board. It's not that. Like, they are winning some seats. But it does seem when there's a tension on the race, which may be like, well, it has a tension because it's close kind of thing, they do seem to be doing well. And it almost is like when people are paying attention, the progressive candidate seems to do better than when they just kind of sleepwalk races in the background.
Yeah, definitely.
So what I wanted to talk about with Nixon before we moved on, and because it kind of colors all the primary talk, I think, is this DSA candidate versus progressive candidate logic of just like the DSA, like she's the first DSA candidate that has won this midterms that's registered as a DSA person, other than Rab, who was earlier in the year. Most of them, like the Abduls and stuff like that, they're not DSA, they're progressive, and they overlap majorly with the DSA, but they're not literally like a registered DSA person. Nixon is a DSA candidate. She's like Zoran, she's like Rab, she's in that platform. And I was just thinking about something you and I were talking about off the air, which is just that so many times people have to run away from certain DSA platforms that are more extreme. Now, not always. Blanking our name, in New York, she didn't. She doubled down on abolish prisons, abolish the borders, things like that, abolish the Senate, things like that. But some of these DSA platforms, usually they don't want to agree with. So a lot of these DSA candidates don't even agree with the DSA platform totally. And so it makes you wonder, why are they running as DSA and not just progressive Democrats like Bernie and AOC do? So I was going to have this segment. I had this idea of going down the platform and then saying, Rick, what does Rick think? Too far to know. But
put on the spot for the second week in a row.
But you're lucky. You're totally lucky. I went to go pull up the website. And unfortunately, this is the website. This is dsausa.org. It is site currently unavailable. It's apparently running on a very socialist IP.
My future presidential run gets lucky here.
Yes.
I can dodge some questions.
They're unavailable. For the listeners at home, the site is currently unavailable. It's registering a 404. So, yeah, Rick got bailed out by the socialist gods. Their platform is currently unavailable right now.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to talk about it.
No, I know.
I think
conservative Rick is fuming. No.
The face of AIPAC. Similar to what you said, it raises the question, if they're not running on the policies of the DSA, why are they saying they're members of the DSA? Because Nixon's probably the clearest example of someone that's just sprinting away from the DSA platform. For good reason, obviously. She's running in a Trump state.
Freaking Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting. At this point, I feel like the DSA label is kind of there to just signal to people, I'm not part of the Democratic Party, which is very corporate and way too centrist, way too beholden to donors. But I still, personally, that's not enough for me to say I'm DSA if I don't agree with all of the policies, right?
Yeah, totally. We talked about it with Dean Baker on the show earlier this week of just, why does this word socialist, why is it so trendy now, right? Like, what really, because if they're not really socialists, then why are they using the word so much? And Dean's answer, which I highly recommend people listen to the episode, what a great
Great interview.
And that guy was awesome. I mean, what a smart dude. What a well-spoken guy. So many good comments and thoughts and ideas. What I really liked about him was how idea-centric he was. He was trying to propose fixes, not just kind of whine like I do. Like, he had a lot of good ideas. So I really like that about him. And yeah, so I asked him, as an economist, why do you think this is kind of emerging? And what do you think about the DSA and things like that? Because I'm just genuinely curious. And he made the point that I had never thought about, which is just a lot of these people, especially younger people, have just been hearing Democrats be called commies and socialists for their whole lives, especially their whole adult lives. And they're like, well, I like Medicare for all. I want, human rights. I want, single payer healthcare, whatever. So yeah, I guess I'm a socialist, huh? They just think like that because that narrative has outweighed what the actual word means more than what it does. What do you think about that? I actually never even thought about that if you think Obama's a socialist because you've been just told he's a socialist your whole life, then you're like, yeah, I guess I'm a socialist too.
Yeah, totally. It's almost like socialism has come to be a stand-in term for wanting a more effective welfare state, which that's obviously not what socialism is. And you can look to most of Europe for examples of market economies that have a more generous welfare state and benefits and Medicare for all and everything. So it's interesting. It's kind of, in a way, I feel like people are reclaiming the word after it's been used as an insult against anybody that's left of center in any possible way since Reagan, but especially the past 20 years. So I definitely understand it from that aspect, but I do think there's kind of a sad reality of it being a scary word to swing voters. And so I don't really see the benefit in a general election from identifying as socialist unless you're a true socialist and really talking about things like government taking over industries and things like that. But just saying you want the tax rate on rich people to be a little higher so we can have healthcare like the rest of the developed world, that suddenly doesn't make you go from capitalist to socialist.
No, and also a lot of the other programs that the DSA puts forward, for example, abolishing ICE, which you and I are supportive of, that's not a socialist policy. That's just a progressive leftist policy. Or you could say, it's the same with the border, or it's the same with prisons, or the same with any, the environment or trans rights. Those aren't inherently socialist. The only things that socialism usually cares about is economics. And so, yeah, Zoran is more socialist than Bernie and AOC in that he wants to actually open up government-owned grocery stores, government-owned apartment buildings, things like that. And I'm for it. Like, I'm not against that at all. But yeah, most of the time, it's actually two separate things, their economic policy and then their social and community building policies. And they often get conflated because there's such a hyper focus on the word socialist.
Yeah, totally.
And so it's interesting. We talked about it, you and I talked about it actually before the Dean Baker interview, which is that most of these people are social democrats, which has its own political science jargony word, which for those who don't know what that means, that's effectively, think about Sweden, think about Denmark, think about Europe in general, which is effectively, like what Rick was just saying, a state that regulates capitalist ideas heavily, antitrust laws very heavily, and also provides a social welfare system that's much more robust than we have in the US. So think about free healthcare, free college, things like that. So yeah, that's where I think Bernie actually is. That's probably where I actually am, and you are, and a lot of these people are. But because there's no place for them, they've kind of just floated towards the DSA, which comes with a litany of different platform ideas, not just Medicare for all.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if the phrase social democrat can't catch on in the US because one of our two parties is the Democratic Party. So to be a social democrat, lowercase d, is like just a step too far, too confusing to the general public. That was always my feeling of why Bernie calls himself a democratic socialist, even though everything he proposes is in line with social democracy.
Yeah, it just shows you, though, that one of the answers should just be the Democratic Party being more progressive, and then that would solve a lot of these issues. If the actual party we had in place, that is the more significantly established party, just had more of these progressive viewpoints, or at least implemented them. Because I also think part of it, the appeal of the DSA, right, is just it's not the Democratic Party, right?
Totally.
People just don't want to be associated with Chuck Schumer, Kamala Harris, whatever, Hakeem Jeffries, whatever. Like, so they're like, this is left wing. I'm left wing. It's not Democrats. I hate the Democrats, so I'll do this one.
Right. And like the reality is most of the world exists on a spectrum that combines capitalism and socialism. Like it combines free markets with government intervention. The question is how the government intervenes in the economy. But nothing I'm seeing from this current wave of DSA identified candidates says to me that they've officially crossed over to like full-blown socialists, right?
No. These are all very intelligent, reasonable humans who are just trying to signify that they're not status quo. I genuinely think that. And again, they're allowed to think the things, like if they think the prison argument or the border, like I mean, great, you know, like there's nothing wrong with it. But I do think it's interesting because, and then we're going to go to the other primaries. But for example, and you've been talking about this the last few weeks, which is that Zoran has kind of changed his tune a little bit about the police, specifically around defunding the police, abolishing the police or whatever. And I am not so in the left-wing circles of social media. I'm starting to get more and more because of our show, right? And my algorithm is starting to be like, this guy's a real freaking lefty. Let's feed him the most left-wing stuff there is. And so this week, I saw a lot of people really attacking Zoran on this lefty social media circles, specifically someone saying, was it worth it? You know, because of what he's doing with the police, is the whole Zoran experiment too right-wing? And I'm criticizing him for that. And I just can't even believe that exists on the internet. You know, I'm just shocked.
Totally. And it's not like he's proposing like Rudy Giuliani-esque stop and frisk, able to giving the police the power to just stop people on the street because they think they look suspicious. He's not doing that at all. It's just he's very clear that when he says, I don't want to defund the police, and he's been doing a lot of stuff in support of the NYPD, which I think is fine. But I guess the question is, if you don't support like radical police reform, radical prison reform, radical reform to the structure of the federal government, like the U.S. Senate, all things that are part of the DSA platform, and really like the major parts of the DSA platform. Why use the label?
Well, and also it comes down almost to this word like, and I hate to do this because it does seem like a little semantic-y, you know, like people nitpicking different words, but they love the word abolish. The word abolish is just everywhere. Abolish prisons, abolish the border, abolish the police, abolish ICE. And I just think like oftentimes it means reform or overhaul. And I do think there's a difference, right? So you and I are sympathetic to the abolish ICE claim. And the difference, I think, between saying abolish ICE and abolish prisons is A, ICE hasn't always existed. There are other ways to enforce immigration without ICE. And I think at least that ICE has proven itself incapable of saving, right? Because we don't need it. Other countries don't have ICE. We're fine without it, I think. We can get creative. But like, there aren't any countries without prisons, right? And you could say, well, they're fundamentally different than the way the American prison complex is. And I agree. The prison industrial complex of this country is disgusting, and it does need to get torn down and rebuilt completely. But I don't think abolishing prisons is right, because there's the rebuilt part. And I think maybe if the word was overhaul instead of abolish, that would be more appealing, you know, because it just feels impossible to win a general election saying you want to abolish the border, abolish prisons, abolish the Senate, and so forth, right?
100%. It's a very strong word, and even though I support a lot of these candidates that have said that, I think it's fair to criticize them for never really explaining what that would look like in a practical manner, right? It's very kind of utopia thinking of sometime in the distant future, wouldn't it be amazing if we didn't need prisons? But it's obviously just not realistic, and we obviously need prison reform and police reform. But yeah, I don't the word abolish is really being used by Republicans to just attack every Democrat running right now. And I don't really see the benefit if you're not going to, like, in the way you just defended abolishing ICE. Like, none of these candidates are getting that detailed about abolishing prisons or abolishing police.
No, because they can do it for ICE, but they can't do it for the other things. And that's exactly right, because ICE is fundamentally different from the other, because it's a new program that has been weaponized as like a personal militia to enforce immigration in a cruel and inhumane way. I don't know any countries that don't have borders, because then they're not countries. You know what I mean? Like, that's just kind of inherent to the definition. But anyways, the reason why I wanted to talk about this before we went through the whole thing more is just because exactly what you were saying. Like, what is the value, right? Is it just a signal to the left that you're not Wasserman Schultz, right? And is that worth it anyway? Because I guess there is the counter argument, right, is they're going to call you a communist anyway, right? And that kind of does overshadow everything. But you're starting to see some people be like, Kamala Harris endorsed me, I don't want it. Right?
Yeah.
Anyways, interesting stuff. So moving on, Aisha Wahab won the California special election. They are filling Eric Swalwell's seat, who obviously resigned in disgrace because he's a psychopath. She will be the first Afghan American in Congress, which would be very cool. Very, very cool. Another one of these in the pattern type folks on the progressive. Good job. Congratulations. So, yeah, the big pattern of Abdul, Flanagan, Nixon, Wahab, these people are getting outspent up the yin-yang and still winning, which is great. Peltola in Alaska, very interesting. The polling is really making it seem like a toss-up now. So I think it's the Cook Institute. Who's the one who rates how likely they are? It went from likely Republican to toss-up, which is similar in Texas with Tallarico and Paxton. Very cool. Good to see that being chance. But like we said earlier, Debbie Wasserman Schultz survived her own primary, and Larkin lost to Jared Moskowitz. I said this wrong last time. Moskowitz. For some reason, I look at that and I just go, I just regurgitate. I'm not, no disrespect to Jared, but yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about Wasserman Schultz. I can't believe this woman can win an election, period.
Same. I mean, I really thought her political career was over, like, what, 10 years ago? 8 years ago?
10 years, yeah.
She was the DNC chair, right?
Yep.
Or the vice
She was
chair?
the one who had to resign in disgrace because of the Bernie collusion leaks with the email.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think her and Moskowitz, I know Moskowitz he's an incumbent and his district was redrawn since his last election, but they are both running in like very purple areas in a red state. So it's not a referendum against progressive candidates. I feel like it's just the reality of, hey, not every district is ripe for a new wave of progressive candidates, right?
Yeah. No, and I just think her specifically, like, she just has so much bad publicity around her name specifically. It just seems crazy.
Right. Like, part of the reason the DNC has had trouble over the past 5 years at picking a DNC chair is because nobody wants the job, because it's just a way to like torpedo your career.
Yeah.
Because being the face of the establishment of the Democratic Party, you don't get much benefit. It's kind of a thankless job in a way.
100%. And also being the DNC chair during the Hillary Clinton loss against Donald Trump in 2016, which is the most humiliating loss in American politics, potentially ever, right? And being the strategist behind that should basically say you suck at politics. Like, no matter what you think, and you can put the onus on Hillary, you can put the onus on whoever. Fair enough, but she has so much blood on her hands, no matter what you think. I mean, maybe you could say she's a good politician and a bad strategist. Maybe that's the way you could justify it.
Right. Yeah, it's surprising that she's still kicking around, but I do not see her like winning a presidential nomination or
No,
anything like
no,
that.
no. She should, I don't know. I just feel like if you've had to resign in disgrace in any type of role, you should probably not get another similar role unless you really changed your tune. But nevertheless, so moving on to Iran, a little update. We talked about the sailors who weren't on who hadn't seen shore in a while. They're back. Land ho.
Welcome.
Welcome back. Speaking of which, can't not think about I saw the Odyssey last night for the first time, and it was good. A little long. a little long. I mean, the plot is interesting, obviously, classic plot, but like it does boil down to Odysseus finds land, goes on land, thinks it's good, it's actually bad, run away, repeat.
Yeah, runs into monster, gets around to monster,
comes
runs
back,
away.
running on the beach. The worst part of the movie, I thought, was at the very end where the guy's dropping the weapons down the hole. Oh, sorry, spoilers. Spoilers, by the way. Spoilers for the Odyssey. It's a 1,000-year-old story.
The most ancient story.
Yeah, but the guy's dropping the weapons down the hole, and they keep cutting to Robert Pattinson, and he just says the name of it. He goes, "Shield, grab the shield," and then they drop spears. Spears, grab the spears, and it's just like, okay, we get it. Grab the weapon.
I had the same reaction. Like, I get it's to show how pathetic he is and how much of a coward he is. And he honestly, I thought my favorite part of the movie was Pattinson and Anne Hathaway.
Yeah, me too. They're the best.
The beggars line is absolutely hilarious. But yeah, I had the exact same reaction where it was like bordering on comedy how much they, in the absolute climax of the movie,
kept cutting to him going, "Someone use a dagger." Use the spear. Like, it was just like a little embarrassing. Anyways, they're back. The boys are back. They made it. They had a better fate than Odysseus's crew, which they didn't make it. Those guys didn't make it. Bessent was in the news this week because we haven't heard from him in a while. He wanted his time back in the sun, I think, and said we're going to sanction Iran. And man, the U.S. is really, really losing the PR battle here in this Iran war, which is truly crazy if you given where Iran sat on world point of view, like polled popularity of the Ayatollah in Iran. It was probably next to North Korea at the bottom. And somehow they've somehow made them feel sympathetic to the Iranian leadership, which is just really embarrassing because this is one of the worst groups there is in terms of just ethics. And to somehow make people feel bad for them is crazy.
Totally. In this week of Trump administration threats, Trump said we're going to rain economic D-Day on them. We're going to send them, Bessent said we're going to send them to economic oblivion. Those are usually things you threaten because you're trying to avoid a war. Not usually things you do 5 months into a war. Specifically, this Trump tweet really just made me go, oh my. He said about Iran, their navy is gone, their air force is destroyed, their military factories are now rubble, their currency is worthless, and their country is hanging by a thread. Then why are we still at war, and why can't the most powerful military in the world open the Strait of Hormuz, if all of that is true?
Yeah, it's embarrassing. And how many days have we won this war, according to him? I feel like we've won the war like 50 times, right? The strait's been open how many days? They keep saying it's open. A deal has been made every other day. Not only is he a liar, which is not surprising, but it cannot be emphasized enough how bad he is at this job. Like, it's nothing about morals, which are obviously in the dirt. He's so incompetent. That's almost the most jarring thing. Because we all knew he was a monster. We all knew he was an idiot. But even with the support network of the U.S. military, he somehow managed to fumble it.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And it's really like, are we getting out anytime soon? Like, how long is this going to go on for?
I think a long time. I think, because what could change, right? Like, what incentive does Iran have to fold if all of the things Trump says are true, right? If they have nothing left, why would they just be like, all right, we'll call it and just die, right? Like, because we have no money, we have nothing going for us. Doesn't seem to make much sense. So, of course, they're going to hold out to try to negotiate some sort of deal that gives them economic reparations in a way that can rebuild their country.
Yeah, totally. And the Truth Social posts are not moving the needle.
No, but it is worth saying on the Truth Social post, did you see this thing that came out that apparently they were charging people to get access to his Truth Social posts before he tweets them out?
Oh yeah,
Wall
for
Street?
$100,000.
Can we talk about this? I mean, Jesus Christ. So for those who don't know this, I highly recommend doing some research on it. Apparently, they're charging $100,000 to get early access to Trump's freaking Truth Social accounts before they go live because of how much they, famously or infamously shift the market around.
Yeah, it's just like his crypto schemes and his son's getting billions of dollars. It's like corruption that's so unbelievably open and just in your face that it's like they think they're totally untouchable. And it was interesting. It's another example of like media silos and everything, but there was a clip of Shane Gillis on Joe Rogan a couple weeks ago. Shane Gillis is obviously a massive stand-up comedian. Massively popular, not massive in size. And he brought this up to Rogan. He said, have you heard about this thing where they're giving early access to his tweets for $100,000? That's just open insider trading. And of course, Rogan had absolutely no idea.
Of course. Which is hilarious because he was part of insider moving because he texted Trump to sign an executive order about psilocybin and it got done. That's what that is. Direct access. No, it's crazy. I mean, what's also crazy is that the Department of Justice has multiple times testified that the Truth Social account is Trump. They said if it's on his account, it's him, which means there's no running away from it now. It's proven. You've said it yourself. Is this the most corrupt thing he's done? I mean, you could say taking the jet from Qatar, right? That's one. The crypto, $4 billion of profit. The having Eric Trump and Donald Trump selling contracts to drone companies before using them for a war. That's up there, of course. But the pardons, paying for pardons, we've seen that one too. That one also is terrible. But specifically giving early access to tweets that will move the market, given what we've seen with this Iran war, with the tariffs and things like that, and us just speculating that it seems like he's doing this on purpose, that is as corrupt as it gets, right?
Yeah, all of that is terrible. This is the most unbelievable, I think, to the extent that some of the most MAGA people on the planet were probably like, you can't do this. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like Steve Bannon was probably like, I think this is a step too far.
The difference is the other ones only really benefit him and his family, right? It's him stealing. This one, he's stealing to help Wall Street bankers, which is as low as it gets. I mean, talk about the scummiest move you could possibly do is insider trading with Wall Street as the president.
Yeah, it's so depressing how we've got here. And I really hope if the next president is a Democrat that they go after some of this stuff. We can't do the thing again of just like, let's move past this. Like, let's put the Trump era behind. Like, it's setting such an unbelievably dangerous precedent that Trump and these people need to be prosecuted for this stuff.
100%. And I think also anyone involved with ICE and all that stuff, like there needs to be a mass trial. And it's such a good point because this has been a theme we've talked about, but with these midterms is the strategy of what do you do if Democrats retake the House and or Senate? Do you just instantly impeach him and go after him, even though knowing that you probably won't be able to remove him from office because of the Senate, because the Senate, the way it's structured? Do you think they should do it instantly or do you think they should wait until he's gone to really do the massive investigation push? Or
I think because he'll be in control of the executive branch for a couple of years, like you have limits on the investigative powers, I feel like, even if you have a majority in both houses. but you got to do it right away. And I feel like it's one of these things that almost all Democrats agree on, right? Like you're seeing Haley Stevens, for example, ran on leading the impeachment trials in term 1. So it's not like there's going to be all these Democrats being like, hey, let's slow down.
No, I agree. No, I 100% agree. Because the argument against it is that it will just make the Democrats look whiny and complainy and annoying. And then he'll be able to use that as a scapegoat for why he's so ineffective, which is impossible to do given the current trifecta of governments. But at one point, you have to be like, how many laws can one person break?
Right.
And how spineless are you willing to be about those laws being broken? I mean, I think there are more voters to lose from acting weak than voters to gain by being passive and strategic.
Definitely. And with these progressive candidates, like you're seeing these people have actual platform and bold policies that would actually help the 99% of Americans that, aren't multimillionaires. So I think you just have to balance that, right? You can't make it seem like all Democrats care about is impeaching Trump. I think that's when you get in trouble. Like, you have to do both things.
Yeah, I think, and it ties into what we were talking about earlier, I think that's why people are into it even if they know it's not realistic, right? Like, I like the candidate, and that's why I'd vote for Nixon and all these people, which is that I like the candidate that says abolish prisons, then nothing about the prisons, I guess, right? Because the prison complex is rotten to its core. And I think people are just responding to someone saying something about issues that they've been feeling have been hurting people and don't care if it's realistic or not versus, oh, we got to look at it closely. We got to take a look, like blah, blah, blah. Like that isn't getting anyone out of bed. So, yeah, no, it's exactly to your point. And so this is something that I can't believe is news, but it is news, which is John Ossoff talking about Trump's assistant, Natalie Harp. Now, Ossoff is running for re-election this year. People may think he's just in the news for his sassy and serious commentary in
striking appearance.
Yes, and his now very strong shoulders. His killer physique now. No, but anyways, it's been kind of assumed he will just win his reelection, even though he does run in Georgia, which is pretty amazing how much of a stranglehold he has on that race, given his state. He was at a rally, right? And he was doing his thing. And he made a comment about how Trump basically just wants to fly around with Natalie all over and doesn't give a crap about anything. And this really rubbed the White House the wrong way. Trump has been flipping out. He's tweeting attacks on Ossoff. Ossoff has now gotten the full wrath of the MAGAverse because of this. It's unbelievable, frankly, because not only is Trump that has actively bragged about sexual assault, this is a man who's best friends with Epstein. This is a man who's broken every law under the sun. Report after report about his actions at Teen USA, all these horrible things. People have called him a fascist, and he giggled with Zoran about it. Put on a turtleneck the next day. Nothing seems to bother him, but this comment really, really pissed them off.
Yeah, and that's all Ossoff said was... It was a throwaway line. He didn't even pause after he mentioned it, right? It was like a phrase in the middle of a long sentence.
He was just talking about stuff.
Right. And like you said, the point was he'd rather hide in a secret plane with 4 of his friends, including Natalie, than do anything that supports the working class of America. It's surprising how much Republicans are flipping out about it. Like you said, it's incredibly hypocritical to them suggesting that this is a sexist comment in any way. But it's also kind of introduced some other details about Natalie. For example, this regime change book that came out that made a lot of headlines a couple months ago included a couple letters. I would describe them as love letters that Natalie wrote to Trump, in which she's just saying, like, I will always stand by your side no matter what. At one point, she says, like, my biggest fear is that, there's distance between us. And it's incredibly weird. And comes off as just like she's unbelievably obsessed and likely in love with Donald Trump. Then there's another photo of Trump riding in his golf cart and Natalie in a full sprint about 20 yards behind, trying to catch up with his golf cart. So I just hats off to John Ossoff, who he did it in such a subtle way, but like it's creating all this negative attention for Trump.
100%. So listen to the. So these are all things that he's looking for something to stick, right? He called him Pee Wee Herman. He called him feminine theater kid, lightweight, John Jackoff, the biggest cuck loser. Pee Wee Herman is the one he has tweeted the most. There's a now live count. It's called Nickname Tracker, where they're trying to figure out what Trump will stick. That seems to be the one. Ossoff then responded saying, Trump is a draft-dodging crook president who has plunged our nation recklessly into war because he knows not how to end or to win any type of conflict. Very true. So I guess the question is, and for those who don't know, Natalie Harp is just Trump's personal assistant, right? Like, I think that's her title. So it's not like chief of staff like Susan Wiles. It's just more of an assistant. Like, think about how celebrities have assistants or things like that, or rich people have assistants. Trump is both. Why do you think it riled them up so much?
Honestly, because of how popular John Ossoff is getting. I think it's a combination of that mixed with a very subtle implication about infidelity, right? I mean, what was so funny is a few days ago, Melania gave the first speech in months and made a joke about how, like, you're all very happy to see me. I know you've all been waiting to see me. And so it's like, clearly everyone's worried that people think Trump is sleeping with Natalie. But again, Ossoff never said that.
No, and also, how did Trump and Melania start dating? Wasn't he with another woman? I mean, right. Trump, the king of loyalty and never committing infidelity ever in his life, known for nothing but wholesome relations with all the women he's had, not having to pay hush money to Stormy Daniels. But it's crazy. I not to be TMZ here, but it does make you wonder, right? Like, what the hell? It's almost the better response. It's the thing Trump doesn't understand is if you just let it roll off your back, people won't care. But if you throw an absolute tantrum, then all of a sudden people are like, wait, what the fuck's going on here?
Right. Yeah, and what's interesting about John Ossoff, too, is that before he ran for Congress originally, he was producing documentaries about corruption in politicians around internationally, like outside of the U.S.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I think that shows, like, he's obviously great on camera, but, like, he knows how to create a narrative, and, like, I think he probably secretly kind of knew this was going to blow up at least a little bit, but I do think the bottom line is him gaining popularity, him polling 12% ahead in a race that should have been a dead heat,
Totally.
And that he won by 1% last time he ran, and now it looks like it's not even potentially going to be close. I think all of that's playing a huge role. Like, if this was, some random Rachel Maddow or like
Schiff,
some less...
or someone he already hates,
right.
Walls or whatever,
I don't think it would have gotten the attention. And I don't think, like, I love our ongoing bit about how good-looking John Ossoff is, but, like, it is a thing that Trump he's obsessed with appearance and looks. And it is a thing that, like, he's very charmed, but also threatened by good-looking men. And, like,
yeah.
and,
he's
like,
let that known. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Frequently brings it up. So I think all of that is, like, a factor in why they're feeling so threatened.
Yeah, I agree. And he could take down these guys. Like, he's really a threat for these guys if he runs for president in a couple of years. And the opposite of a threat is Miss Darline Graham. So for those who don't know, it's the sister, right, of Lindsey Graham, the now deceased Lindsey, who Trump has personally appointed effectively to replace Lindsey Graham. So they had their first debate for the So she's currently acting as senator, right? She was anointed by McMaster, and now she's running for re-election because Lindsey Graham was running for re-election this year. So the seat is vacant, for those who don't know. And so they had their first debate this week. And let's just say Darline didn't do a great job. She had a rough go.
Yeah, she had a real fumble.
Should I play the clip of her for us?
Yeah.
Because it was a rough. If I wouldn't say it was Darline at her finest, but let's play. Haven't seen this woman in a while. What's her name again? I'm blanking on her name. Well, she does a lot of the debates.
Oh, yeah.
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States? If so, why?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Are Taiwan and the South China Sea national security issues for the United States, and if so, why or how?
I'm just going to be honest here. I'm not on national security. I'm not that informed on national security, so.
Darline Graham is serving as
and that's the Associated Press woman. Thoughts?
It's just unbelievable. I mean, for so many reasons. She's running for U.S. Senate, right? First of all.
That's usually a good starting place that you should be informed in national security.
This is not like, do you remember when Gary Johnson ran for president and he was asked at a debate, how do you feel about Aleppo? And he had no idea what Aleppo was, that it was a city in Syria. And he got destroyed for that. That was a much more difficult question than a very generic China-Taiwan-U.S. relations question. Like, this was not a difficult question to answer. The other kind of funny part, making it even worse than other politicians doing that, is the only thing Lindsey Graham, her brother, ever even pretended to know about was foreign policy.
Yeah, that's his whole thing.
He was a foreign policy hawk. He was obsessed with it and national security. That was his entire political career for the last 40 years. So for his sister running for his seat to be like, I don't really know much about national security is like just unbelievable.
I'm 100% sure every single listener right now could have mustered together some sort of comment about Taiwan and China. Just anything.
Right. The bottom line is I support the right to self-determination. How difficult is that?
Exactly. We got to make sure that our allies feel safe and blah, 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 blah. You could just rattle off something. The only thing I can think of is the Herman Cain Libya remark, where they go, what do you think about Libya? And he just went, Libya. Oh, yeah, Libya. And the guy goes, do you know what Libya is? And he goes, of course I know Libya. I'm a big Libya guy. I think Herman Cain may no longer be with us. I think he died of COVID, right?
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Yeah, I think he might have been a sexual predator. Didn't he have a lot of...
Yeah, maybe don't rest in peace. No, and it almost reminded me of like a Will Ferrell skit.
Yeah.
Or the way that she goes like, can you repeat the question? Like, she just has no idea.
She doesn't know what Taiwan is. No way. There's no way she knows what Taiwan is. No way. That should instantly disqualify her. And I'm almost positive she'll win, which is just unfortunate. That's just an absolute thing. Really quickly, a couple of things. Unfortunately, the ballroom is back on. The Supreme Court has said he can continue with the ballroom. We're getting a Trump ballroom, folks. It will maybe, I don't know when it will be built or to the extent, but it seems like this is it. It's coming.
Yeah, and this is another example of like Trump lies about things that he doesn't even need to lie about. Like, it's so instinctive. But just a reminder to people, he claimed before this project that the East Wing would not be affected at all. It's since been completely demolished. And
there is no East Wing.
There's no East Wing anymore. He also claimed it would be funded by private donors and is now not even pretending to say that.
Not even all. And also, let us not forget that after the correspondence dinner, the original one where the shooting threat was, he said, we must build the ballroom because there's no other way we could have a secure correspondence dinner without one. And then they proceeded to host a correspondence dinner in a hotel a couple of weeks later, completely fine. So, yeah, the ballroom has been one of the all-time biggest scams ever. They're effectively going to charge around $400-500 million for this thing. And on top of it all, it's so ugly. His mock-ups, they're so gaudy. It's so kitschy. If you're going to go all out, come on, like make a pretty ballroom. He's not even good at real estate. That's, I think, the thing that's crazy to me is his design isn't even good. It's so kitschy and like awful. He's not even good at that.
Right. Yeah. It's such like a symbol of this whole presidency that he's so obsessed with this.
And bad at it. It would be one thing if he was this interior design maven that he thinks he is, or this architectural genius who can design these beautiful arcs and ballrooms and gala settings and things like that. Everything is so ugly. It's really ugly. It's not even nice looking. It's so awful. Yeah, the other thing was Swalwell, the guy who we were talking about who lost his seat for his scandals. There was like a raid with him. He was accused of sexual assault allegations. And yeah, it is funny that he was raided because it does seem like they're really going after him more than a lot of the other folks who've had to resign in disgrace. Not to say that this guy should get any real sympathy, but it is odd that this is happening.
Yeah, the accusations are terrible.
Awful.
Yeah,
guy.
we're talking about drugging and sexual assault. The interesting with, and it's, by the way, it's multiple women. It's not just one. But also there's this story about how in 2015 he admitted to the FBI that he slept with a woman who turned out to be a Chinese spy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This guy is bottom of the barrel.
Right. This was 11 years ago. He admitted this to the FBI. The woman volunteered for his campaign. And she was legitimately a Chinese spy. So I think that might also be fueling some of the investigations.
Why was it 11 years ago, though? Why not do anything then?
I think they did. I think it was just newly declassified. I don't know.
Yeah, because 2015 is obviously Obama. Not good for the conspiracy theories. They shielded him. No, I have no idea. I think that's it. Are we missing any major news stories?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I think that it's time then. And we have Linda back here. Linda, where are you?
It's time for Rick's Cultural Corner.
Thank you, Linda.
She came back. She brushed the cobwebs off.
Yeah, exactly.
Her old jobs. Yeah.
So I thought, and this is like very Trump related, but I thought we'd talk about virtue signaling and vice signaling. I just learned about the latter this week.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that is. Yeah.
I assume most of us are familiar with the term virtue signaling, which really got huge like 10 years ago, but has been around even longer. So virtue signaling, just for context, like the Cambridge Dictionary describes it as an attempt to show other people that you are a good person, for example, by expressing opinions that will be acceptable to them, especially on social media, indicating that one has virtue merely by expressing disgust or favor for certain political ideas or cultural happenings. The implication is that it's insincere and hypocritical, right?
Yeah. Like Target making its logo rainbow colored for Gay Mark.
Right, exactly. While secretly donating to anti-gay rights politicians, right? That would be a prime example of virtue signaling. But I just learned this term, the flip side, which is what I want to talk about, which is vice signaling. So obviously you can infer it's bragging about vices or negative personal qualities. But this is how the Financial Times editor describes the...
So Louis C.K.'s entire stand-up routine every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say most stand-up bits.
So a vice signaler boasts about sneaking meat into a vegetarian meal. He will rush onto social media to denounce as a snowflake any woman who objects to receiving rape threats or any minority unhappy at a racist joke. Vice signalers have understood that there is money to be made in the outrage economy by playing the villain.
Wow. Well, that's the entire Republican media complex and Trump.
100%. And this other quote is super interesting. This is by a philosophy professor at Georgetown. He described it, a vice signaler is trying to look bad, but not to everyone. He typically violates moral or other standards of an outgroup precisely in order to look good to the fellow members of some in-group. The moral commitments of the in-group are basically irrelevant. All that matters is owning the enemy. Does that sound like anyone to you? Can you think of any examples?
I can't imagine anyone who could do No, it kind of is funny. It's like a roast comedian, but in a more dark, awful way. You know, like it reminds me of like Anthony Jeselnik or like Tony Hinchcliffe, but like serious. You know, like really serious. Like,
right.
It's like you take that persona
like
into
an
real life.
edgelord comedian, but making a serious statement. The best example I instantly thought of was Trump saying, "I like war heroes that weren't captured." Like that's such.
Yep.
That's such a mean and disrespectful statement to the military, but it's signaling to the MAGA base, I hate John McCain as much as you do. And that's what matters.
Or when he says something like, you know, or I'm trying to think, like the tamest version would maybe be his escalator remark, right? They're bringing drugs, rapists, and I imagine some of them are good people, like something like that. Like it's kind of in that vein of just piling on. It's also just a huge part of how all right-wing media works, from Jesse Waters, from Nick Fuentes, from Tucker Carlson. You could even argue, you know, Bill O'Reilly was originally the guy who did that. You could say Fetterman is doing that in terms of the way he attacks the DSA candidates and says that like they're anti-Semitic monsters and blah, 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 because he like knows that it'll get him sympathy. It seems to be really a huge part of the political media complex, right? It's just this exact way. You know, Jesse Waters saying something, he says something awful every day. He's hard to even pin down. Right? Like, isn't it kind of like that?
Totally. Especially the past 5 years, or really since Trump won, but in his first term. But like, it's who is meaner to the libs, because I'm so proud of how mean and disrespectful I am as a person, because it signals to my base that I own the libs harder than anybody else.
I'll do anything to own the libs. Yeah. Well, and it's Elon, isn't that not just Elon's entire personality? Like, this is just who he is, to the point of doing a Nazi salute at inauguration and saying it was him throwing his heart to the... No, Big Balls and Doge and all those guys who said they reveled in firing everyone.
That's a great example.
Right? I'm trying to think of other ones. It's just it's so common amongst the right. It's like overwhelming.
Right. It's like, how can I emphasize my worst personality traits in a way that signals to people I'll own the libs, basically? Like and it's really, I feel like it's something for people to like watch out for when they're like choosing who to vote for, is like, is this person running on a platform of policies I support, or are they running on a series of negative personality traits that they're just hoping to win me over because they hate the same people I hate?
Yeah, you know what's another good example is that Dan Bonvino guy when he was walking around in that SS jacket, effectively. And it was just clearly to signal that exact thing, you know, like that was the whole point of doing that. It's a really interesting point, vice signaling. It's kind of what Trump does when he starts waxing poetic about like how horny he is for both men and women on live TV.
Yeah, and like the correspondence dinner when he's going off teleprompter to just describe how much he hates people and isn't even like making jokes.
Or when the woman on Fox goes, "What's going on with the Iranian children?" and he goes, "You're so hot."
Right.
Like, well, can we talk about our secret dinner date 5-10 years ago or whatever?
Right.
Like something like that, or like it's so common with these guys that they. Or Pete Hegseth when he's calling all of the generals fat and he brings them out to be, and it's just to say like, I want to be tough like everyone else, stuff like that or whatnot. There's so many examples of this. It's like actually kind of overwhelming. It's kind of like when you start thinking about it, like you said, it's almost like every single thing they do.
Yeah, it's really the heart of MAGA more so than anything else, I feel like, because it just summarizes like, why are they so hateful? Why are they so openly hateful?
Yeah, because it's the best way to signal that you agree on something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And it is funny though when that Alex Jones made his whole career off this, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true. For Elon, yeah, Elon's just such a good example of it. Like the being proud of cutting millions of dollars of cancer research. Nobody should be proud of that, but it's this weird space that we're living in now where it's like that's telling a small group of people that you're on their side, I guess.
Exactly. Well, and you could say the vaccine stuff with RFK saying something so abhorrent about vaccines, but like in a muddled way to try to signal to his base that he hasn't lost his way while also being director of HHS. And I think that's actually a great way to end. I don't know if you saw this clip going around of RFK during a speech about autism, his ringtone going off.
I just saw that this morning, actually.
All right, well, let's play it really
It's
quick for
great.
the audience because it's just too beautiful. It's a moment of divine intervention. So this is RFK Jr. during a speech about autism.
Drowning is the leading cause of death associated with wandering. Children with autism are 100 times more likely to drown than neurotypical children. We have a responsibility to do better on an autistic, sorry about that.
His literal ringtone is a duck quacking. And for those who don't know the reference, quacks are literally dumb doctors. He's a quack. Right. And it's literally quacking after he made a comment about how autistic people are 100 times more likely to drown than neurotypical folks or whatever. What an absolute maniac.
What an embarrassment.
Why would you make your ringtone a duck quacking, knowing that could possibly happen in any moment?
Yeah, and why is your phone on ring also?
Dude, if you're in charge of the medical establishment, you gotta be like, oh, I can't do a duck quack.
Right.
Like that's a bad look. But anything else. Any other
animal sound.
A woof, a bark, a meow, anything.
A falcon's roar.
A roar, a lion's roar. That would be on brand for him. A quack. Yeah, a literal quack. This guy. He is such a piece of shit.
He sucks.
There's no other. He sucks. Anyway, that's our show, folks. Thank you, Rick. Thanks for usual.
Thank you.
See ya.